Hi, today we're going to be talking about the body of your urban legend essay. You should have already done the activities with the introduction. We'll talk about the conclusion briefly, but the body is where you're going to be doing the bulk of your analysis, of course. And once you've reviewed the assignment sheet, hopefully you have an understanding of what exactly needs to go into this essay. Now, even though we talk about standard essay structure, we've talked about what the body of an essay typically looks like. Keep in mind that everybody's essay is going to be different, right? There's no set number of body paragraphs, for instance. What you put in one body paragraph, somebody else might put in another. It also depends on your topic. You may have more to analyze about one thing than another, and that's fine. But what I'm going to go over today is just the things that you need to cover at some point. And then you need to decide how to break that up into body paragraphs, okay? So remember, your overall question that you're asking yourself about your urban legend is, why do people believe it enough to pass it on? Why do people believe this false story? What about it speaks to them in terms of their fears, their prejudices, their preconceived notions of any regard, right? What is it about the way they see the world that makes them think, yeah, that's true? Either good or bad. Some urban legends are good, some are bad, as we've talked about. But you need to think about what makes them believe it. What does that tell you about the culture? Okay, that's the purpose of this assignment. As I said, we've already talked about the introduction, but once you're into the body of the essay, okay, you want to think about what's on page 49 of the Quick Access Compact. It talks about three things: development, unity, and coherence. Okay? And as you read, development is developing the ideas, building up the ideas, writing about your topic, and making sure you go into good detail. That's where your quotations and your paraphrases from your evidence is going to be, as well as your own explanations. Unity, that means each paragraph itself should be a unit, right? It should be a piece that's all connected. Everything in a paragraph, from the topic sentence, which you'll do that activity, to all the supporting details, are all one paragraph and one focus. That's the point of a paragraph, to break individual focuses into chunks for your reader to process and understand before moving on. It's very difficult to read an essay that's 4 pages of one paragraph. Trust me, I've had students turn those in before, and they're not pleasant to read because your brain needs a pause, right? Just like a TV show is broken into episodes, so too should your essay be broken into paragraphs. Okay, so you should be able to ask yourself, what is the focus of this paragraph? If you have to answer with multiple things, you're probably not focused enough and you need to work on your unity. Finally, coherence. Coherence means that there's a flow, right? It feels natural going from one thing to the next. You do this with transitionary material, as you read about in the Quick Access Compact. This involves transitions within a paragraph, right? When you say things like furthermore, or this example shows, and then you move on, right? Those are transitionary words that show a connection or a thread between things. But you can also do that in your body paragraphs from one to the next, not just within the paragraph, but within the essay. I typically like these type of transitionary sentences at the beginning of the paragraph, not at the end. Because when you end a paragraph by saying something along the lines of, this urban legend also shows racism, and then you end the paragraph, it feels like you stopped talking and you didn't really make your point, even though the next paragraph does make that point. But if you start a new paragraph by saying, in addition to showing sexism, this urban legend also shows racism, to transition, showing that, hey, what I just talked about is related to what I'm moving into, but I am starting this new paragraph. Okay, so that's coherence. Try to have that, like I said, within a paragraph as well as between paragraphs. Okay, and finally, some things that you want to consider for the body of your essay. You need to cover certain things in one way or another. You have to decide how you break these into paragraphs. First of all, you have to have a summary of your legend. Some legends are more detailed than others. Some of them are longer than others with more going on. But this may be a sentence or it may be a small paragraph. But you need to figure out a way to explain to your reader what the legend is so they're not lost. Then you need to analyze the story. Okay, analyze it as a legend. Analyze what's going on. Is there a punchline, right? A twist ending? Is there some moral to the story, right? This is the type of thing we did with The Hook as a class. Okay, so you want to do that with your own legend. Once again, some of your legends may be very simple, so that part may only be a few sentences within a paragraph. For some of you, that may be a whole paragraph. Depends. Then you're going to, and this is where we really get into the heart of the essay, analyze what values, fears, prejudices, preconceived notions people have that the legend shows, right? So when you look at something like the Mexican pet and you see, well, this is obviously playing on fears and racial attitudes about immigration. Or when you look at the story about somebody getting AIDS in the with the woman he met in the bar, right? You can talk about, well, people have an irrational fear about this disease being so spread, even though this legend is not true. Okay, so you want to think about what are those fears, prejudices, attitudes, etc. So once again, how much you talk about. There may be one big one, like a racism, a sexism, a distrust of government, whatever the case may be, or corporations, or it may be several, right, within the essay. There may be several things that are being a concern for the people listening to the legend. So you may have those over multiple paragraphs. Once again, that's something you have to decide as the writer. And then finally, you need to connect your legend to the real world situations, and that's what you're looking for, especially in your research. So in our example with the Ebola, right, the Ebola from the phone, if you're showing concern about products being tainted from elsewhere and you find that article that we've imported many objects that have caused physical harm, well, that's a real world situation that you can tie to the legend. Now make sure that you don't go off the tracks and go into an analysis of the topic itself. I don't want you to have an essay analyzing food safety or governmental issues, right? It's always analyzing the legend, you're just tying in those other issues to help you understand what the legend tells you about the culture. But every single body paragraph should refer to the legend in some way. That'll help you keep grounded with your topic, okay? And that's all you have to cover, right? Like I said, how you do that. Some of you will have some of those things in several paragraphs, some may only be one. It depends, where your focus is based on what your topic is. But use all the things we talked about with synthesis, quotations, paraphrases, using that evidence to back up what you're saying, introducing, citing, explaining, all that. Okay, this is your chance to show that everything we've talked about over the last 3 weeks is something you can do in your writing. Okay, so that's what I want to see in your first draft. I'll give you feedback, of course. You'll get your peer review feedback, and then hopefully we can turn in some really great final drafts of this